what is the best practice. And certainly there's best practices around your hosting and how you have your security set up on your hosting and all the features in front of that. And then you just mentioned some great best practices around your Magento code, how to make sure that your Magento code is up to date, how making sure that we have our security patches on there, and making sure that each of those pieces is still being used. One of the things that we see is a customer that has a 10-year-old site and they have 50 modules installed, but they're only using 3. So that's something that that really has to be looked at, and now we should be extra vigilant as we move forward in this end of life phase of Magento. When you say when you're talking about taking your application off the internet, can you just explain to the viewers what does that mean from a merchant standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we do is we'll deploy our application cluster in what's called a private subnet. So these application servers, when they're fielded, they don't even have a public-facing IP address. So from the internet, you cannot directly connect to these application servers. They're on a network that doesn't have internet connectivity, and they're providing a website. So you say, well, how does that work? Well, we actually deploy then a dedicated proxy, our proxy service. We launch dedicated resource in the public subnet. And so this is back to the conversation around reducing the attack surface of the application. So by putting the proxy in front and saying, okay, the internet can connect to the proxy, and then the proxy has good visibility and strict controls over what you can and cannot do against it. And so now that proxy, that request comes into the proxy, you've got visibility into all requests at that point. And then it controls and applies restrictions on what you can do. So you can't SSH to it, for example. So there's no endpoint that you can talk to gain access to that proxy. It's just, the application domain only. So HTTP, HTTPS, that's all it's going to listen to. And then it's going to it now is sitting on a public subnet, so it has that IP, so it accepts that request, and then it transfers the request to the private application server where PHP FPM is running, where Nginx is running to serve your website. That request actually then gets forwarded on the local side of the subnet to connect to the private resources, build the response, and then deliver that response back through the proxy out into the internet. And so by doing that, you just eliminated all other protocol and access to those servers. It's not just a firewall that that these application servers, they cannot be connected to directly from the internet. And so it's a bit safer from the standpoint of gaining observability into all requests that the site is processing, because everything's going through the proxy, and your proxy should provide you that visibility, be able to see and search through all of the HTTPS requests that you're processing, and apply restrictions and controls around that.
I know one thing you have on here is a WAF, and I think trying to explain this as a regular merchant, the WAF would help us against a bot, and there's regular bots and bot attacks. Can you just briefly go into what does that mean? And especially in the Magento world, if you're on a server that suddenly gets crawled by 50 different servers, how that can affect the performance of your website, and especially if it's doing it on Black Friday. How does the WAF help you in that? And before that, can you just give us the 10,000-foot view of what a WAF is?
Sure. So a web application firewall is a way to control and manage traffic. So you can usually process with a WAF, you can see or have access to the metadata of the request, or sometimes the body of the request as well, and then apply rules to control what level of access or what can be asked for from that application. Simple concept is something like, my admin location. I want to restrict my admin location to this collection of IP addresses only. And anybody that's not on that whitelist is not allowed to even see my admin location. It's kind of a simple rule that can be applied via WAF. So management of traffic, both through metadata and body, that management of the traffic is really what the WAF's about, is saying what's allowed or acceptable use on this website and then enforcing it. So if you try to exceed that acceptable use, it can enforce it. So it can start to deny requests or capture those requests or route them to something else that's innocuous and fast to deliver. So if I use that concept and get into your bot scenario where, say, there's a botnet coming at the site, one example of that is we see quite often brute force attacks on customer account login in Magento. So this is someone someplace in the world trying to gain access to individual user accounts within the application, typically, you know, to use it as an email reflector or something like that. And those attacks, when they're coming, you've got lots of IP addresses making lots of requests, an unnaturally high number of requests to the customer account login. When that occurs, what you want now is to be able to use your WAF to put in a rate limit and say, well, look, I can't take this URL. I don't want to take this URL off the website because my real customers use it. They log into my website and, you know, get coupons and whatever. Check the status of orders and things. So I want to allow this to come from the internet, but I have these bots that are out there that are attacking me on these URLs. So what you'll typically do is look at the rate of those requests and enforce your acceptable use to say, yeah, you can try and log into my website, say 3 times in a minute. And if you exceed that rate, I'm going to forward you to this other web page that's typically delivered from the proxy, served from the proxy, and says, hey, you've exceeded this, you know, your login attempts. If you're having trouble log in, contact us at this phone number or what have you, you know, something nice, or say, yeah, come back in an hour and we'll let you in again. You know, that's a soft example. The more extreme examples are, I've had customers will just say, well, if you get on this list because you violated the acceptable use for the logins, I'm just going to deny you access to the whole website for a day, 3 days. You know, so they're basically that really the essence of it is I'm monitoring how they're visiting the site and deciding whether what is acceptable use for my real users. And if you're violating that, then I'm taking action, and those actions could include, you know, I capture you to force you to prove yourself as human, or I deny you access to that part of the site. I'm not going to let you log in as a customer anymore, or I just block you from the website altogether. And you typically will see stacked sets of rules where you'll do the first one as the soft one, and if they repeat the behavior, you elevate it, and then if you repeat that behavior even more, you just shut them off altogether.